Thank you all, and thank you for the hosts. I'm glad to be here. We're having a wonderful time. I'd like to say that was mine, but I'm going to show you some work we did about 25 years ago. And here it comes. This is San Diego. And I started my career as an architect for some developers who built spec houses. And a spec house was a spec house, you know, mom and dad and the 2 kids and the 2 cars. And we tried to do these things for a while, and actually the developers made all the money, and I did all the work. I kind of figured out that wasn't the way to do it. We tried this project about 1982. Kathy McCormick and I worked on this, and the idea was we didn't want to build a regular house. We wanted to let the buyer figure out how they would divide it up. The questions always with the developer were, did you want a country kitchen or a big living room or a little parlor, or what did you want? So we devised this system of furniture and wall that would in fact allow them to choose how they wanted to divide their house up. In this case we have a country kitchen and a bigger living room. And sometimes you might have a formal dining room and a different kind of living room, and they would be able to make the choice themselves. We felt that the boxes that were getting made were not really conforming to the wishes of the people who were living in the houses. And upstairs bedrooms, again, could be done in a couple different ways, too. Either you would have, you know, the 2 kids' bedrooms and a playroom, or 2 regular bedrooms, or a second master bedroom suite, which we felt would be a way that people could afford these houses. And so we built this project, and I'm showing you this one because this is the house I lost after I built that project. Nobody bought that project. It sat on the market. I'll have to admit it was 1983. Interest rates were 20%. But the idea that a buyer would come in and customize their house by moving cabinets around was actually not well received. I don't really think we had too many people that even came to look at it. Again, it was 1983 and the interest rates were 20%, so I don't know how well tested it was. But my house in Del Mar, where I thought I was happy in 1975 in this house, was gone due to my innovation. Yeah? So here I am now living in my office. And there's a little window on the side there where I had a little bed up over my desk as we move into the beginning of the 80s. And there's my room. That was my addition to the beautiful building that was done by Russell Forrester in San Diego. And I put that little square box on. You'll have to, a little window. You'll have to forgive me. It was 1983. And you'll have to forgive me again. When it came to build a house, Kathy McCormick and I decided that we could live in that little 250 square foot box, and perhaps we could build little boxes like that my friends could live in. Paul rightfully mentioned that I didn't really know the couples that were buying these $350,000 houses. But I did know my friends and musicians and young architects and people who I felt I knew this market. I knew what they wanted, and they wanted kind of what architects wanted, which wasn't what normal people in housing wanted. So I discovered that there was a market, a micro market of people who wanted something odd. And so we built this little house. It was 12 by 20, and it was tall, and you could put a loft in the inside of it. And then between that house and another, we added a few more over the years. So it was incrementally built with cash. Of course, a bank wouldn't finance such a thing. And the inside of that unit was little. We decided the highest priority was domain. I wanted to have a door. And the next highest priority was I wanted a bathroom of my own. This is coming from shared housing where you share the bathroom and share the kitchen. In college, you know, we all shared a house, yeah? And so we decided that what was most important was a private door, a private bathroom, and then architecture. And that came before partitions around the bathroom. So we would rather have a brick floor than a partition. We figured someone could go to Home Depot on the weekend and build a partition. The way we were able to build these little houses in the single-family zone and where they don't allow such small houses was to have each of these suites share a kitchen. Now it's a single-family residence. We were able to tell each of them have a front door, each of them have a bathroom, and then they all share the kitchen. So from that, well, it was a successful project. We had quite a bit of luck with this. We developed a kind of a rationale that had to do with the advantages and the loopholes of the ordinance. And you all are familiar with all the different kinds of ways you can be in different kinds of houses. And this is that first little house again with the shared kitchen, private bathrooms. And then you went back up over top of the kitchen into some suites and little places where you could sleep up above. And then later we added again another building on the front. So it became about a 2,000 square foot house, 6-bedroom house, 6 bathrooms, and was still legal. But we had to call some of the rooms living rooms, and we called different rooms whatever they needed to be to make the planning department happy. So it was, we called it kind of a stealthy architecture in the event. When we first did this, we were very proud, and we told all the people about it, and there was publications. And of course the neighborhood had a fit, even though the house had been there for a couple years. And they started worrying about it. This is, again, the way the house looks at the building department. Living room, dining room, kitchen, 3 bedrooms. The houses actually sit in a peculiar location. It's real important. I think you can't stick one of these houses in the middle of a neighborhood. The problem with shared houses in college is there's a lot of cars, there's late night parties, there's poor maintenance. So we found that the location for these houses was best on the commercial residential interface, behind the strip streets of the place. And it's this location for the projects we call the go homes. And the idea was you go home to a house of your own. But they're running all along the marsh here in Del Mar, so we were in the most expensive real estate in San Diego. And I think these houses were about $50,000 each. The 6 people would get together and buy the house. So you'd buy a $300,000 house and you'll own a sixth of it. And we'd build these houses. They were located along a difficult area of high contention in the planning groups. What's going to happen when the street gets widened? What happens when the edge of the marsh is trampled by the widening street? So there was fights, and what I most enjoyed was the coalition between the environmentalists and the rich property owners up the hill, which was kind of unusual. But they all hated anything. And so we wanted to kind of make the edge of the marsh so it wouldn't sprawl into the marsh for the environmentalists. And then on the other side, we wanted to make sure the sprawl from the commercial strip wouldn't sprawl into the rich people's houses up the hill. So we would find these buffer lots between the commercial and the residential zones, which we felt were appropriate for these rather large single-family residences. And the way the rezoning works in San Diego, if you're adjacent to an upzone, you can always do an upzone. So this actually prevented the sprawl of apartment buildings into the community by building an upscale single-family residence of which you couldn't upzone beyond it. So they actually made a kind of a jetty against the sprawl, we used to say, and stopped them from coming. I should go back here. This is the commercial side of the building. On the back of the building looks like a little house. So the idea was not to make the people uphill unhappy and then to keep the sprawl out of their neighborhood. So we thought of these houses as jetties, between the commercial, the parking lots, the dipsy dumpsters of the commercial zone. And over a number of years, we identified a number of sites. And what we would do is we'd go to the owners of these sites who were all planning upzonings and talk them into building a go home that would build this sort of buffer between the two areas. And we did these projects, those dates, back in the 80s. So and I'll show you some of these. This is Via Felino. This is an odd property. I got 3 or 4 architects together to do this one. And we all had our office in the middle in what was called the living room. So we had our office and 5 suites, in which our practice all worked and lived in the building. And it was a simple little structure, looked like a regular house, except the way you would define it. We had gotten a little better at it by this time. We didn't build this one incrementally. We found that we really could go to the banks as well as the building department and say a living room is whatever we wanted to call it, as long as it looked right. So these is really what was the office in the middle. You go upstairs, there's some bedrooms, which are rather kind of large, and a common space, which is that yellow space there. I believe we're looking at the 2 different plans so that you can see what it's called as a house versus as an apartment. And here's another one that we did a little bit later, where you can see the names of the rooms: family room, master bedroom, living room, and there really are 8 suites, A, B, C, D, E, and F. The idea is completely flexible, and it was somewhat stealthy too, in that we didn't have to go to the planning groups and say, we're building low-cost housing, we're just building a 3,000 square foot house. So that was what we could pull off pretty well. The banks would fund them, and we were able to build 7 or 8 of these houses in the 80s. This is a quick thing of that sprawling area, and I'll show the properties we went in. We didn't get quite this far. We wanted to have a jetty all the way across, but by this time we'd had some publications. The cat was out of the bag, and there was a city council person running for office, and they thought these were the end of the world. So we moved on. But this is a picture of the first go-home down at the bottom of the marsh between the commercial and the residential zone. The second go-home here on the right, that little yellow box. I lived in all of these houses. The green one on the bottom was designed to look like an old German dance hall that was being ruined by a developer down the street. Again on the bottom, trying to take advantage of the proper location. Close-up of the Via Felino house, Via Asperia. And this one we call the Gone Home. This one happened, I should go back to Asperia. When this one was under construction, we wanted it to look like a big building because we wanted a strong presence on the edge of the marsh. And this is the one that got the neighbors totally freaked out. So we actually had, this guy was going to build a shopping center on this site. We talked him into building this house and another one behind it. We built this one first. All hell broke loose, and was actually stopped during construction until the city council person was not reelected. And then the planning department was our friend again, and we got final. We all moved in, but we figured that the house behind was on the back, the next house up the hill, which is also part of the shopping center site, would be another go-home. This one was an 8-unit one. Prices had gone up a bit. We needed a few more to get the affordability. And we call this one the Gone Home. The neighbors were all saying these houses are going to drag down our property values. And so we sold this one for more money than any house had ever been purchased or ever been sold for in Del Mar Terrace, right down by the marsh. Of course, it was an 8-bedroom house with 8 bathrooms. Well, that might have been the reason, but we felt that we had answered the question of whether these drag property values down or not. And another one that we did on the marsh. These are pretty old pictures. It's a favorite shot of mine that shows the Indians on the top of the hill, you know, coming over.